You didn't just change careers, you fundamentally reimagined the way I think the leadership development could be.
Well, I had a lot of self-doubt about whether I could make a career in it. For people in their early 30s to get into kind of self-awareness, questioning things maybe they hadn't questioned before. The parents were getting older, moved out of home, got my job. There was actually lots of different change going on. It was a storm, if you want to take the voyage. It was a storm. Okay.
That's a very intimate word to use for coaching. What does it really mean to you?
Wow.
Welcome to Kompass Connect. My name is Shailendra Aswal and I'm the Chief Navigating Officer for My Life Compass. Our navigator today is someone who traded Unilever's boardroom to Asia's coaching ground, Marcus Marsden, author of Fit to Lead and Start With Who. I have known Marcus since my own transformation from corporate to coaching happened, and I'm so glad I met him. He embodies everything what we discussed during our conversation today, and that is to pause, to reflect, listen to your insight is something which can redirect your entire life, even if you're already successful. From Oxford to Unilever, from London to Asia, Marcus' voyage is a fine example that you don't have to lead a life with just a mapped route only. You can go ahead and try some uncharted waters, and maybe that is exactly where you find yourself. So grab your coffee, align your compass, and let's set sail. Marcus, welcome to Kompass Connect.
Thank you very much.
And you are our navigator today.
Okay.
And we look forward for the exciting journey with you.
Okay.
And before we even dive into your remarkable career from a Unilever corporate corridor to everything else what you're doing on the leadership side, especially in Asia and extended part of the world, I would like to extend, something which I learned from your journey. Just want to share it with you. Something which I feel is very profound. And the way I see it, you didn't just change careers. You fundamentally reimagined the way I think the leadership development could be by bringing your body and intent together. That's something which I just gathered from the books and whatever I've heard in various sessions with you. So that's really profound and something which sticks by me. So thank you very much for that.
Great, thank you.
That's really great. So just getting started, Marcus. So you have spent almost a decade plus in Unilever. You've had a great career start, and then 2002, if I'm right, you just decided to totally get on into uncharted waters.
Yeah.
And if you have to look back at Marcus 25 years back, maybe you were doing what, Lifton's brand strategy at that point of time?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
What do you feel?
Well, so 2002 was when I made the leap into joining this other company. But really that journey, the voyage, if you like, began, I would say probably about 1998. That's when I started to become aware of this thing called coaching, leadership development. Up until that point in Unilever, my career had been very technical. It'd been very tangible. It was marketing trainings, and that began to change around 97, 98. And so that's when it really began for me. It was quite a slow process to begin with.
How do you see the journey so far when you look back? Like, what will Marcus 25 years back looking at this stage will feel like?
That's a very interesting question. I think the Marcus looking back in those days, 98, 99, would be very pleased. I think I had lots of dreams in those days, and I had lots of self-doubt in terms of I could see what was possible for the work, but I had a lot of self-doubt about whether I could make a career in it. And I think if I look back now, I've made a career in it, and I'm pleased with that. I'm very pleased with that. But I'm also pleased where the work has gone. The work has developed significantly since those days in the 90s. But if I think back to what I first encountered in the UK in 97, 98, to the work now, and you touched on it already, because 97, 98 there wasn't a lot of body somatic work, but now there is. So that's what in itself one big development.
And you mentioned that you fell in love with coaching work. That's a very intimate word to use for coaching. What does it really mean to you?
Wow. I think it's a metaphor I would use that works for me because it wasn't just an intellectual thing. And I think if I look at my life up until, let's say, 97, 98, consciously or not, my voyage was very intellectual. My schooling had gone well. I'd gone to Oxford University. It was very intellectual. I studied philosophy and theology. So predominantly a kind of mental game. And I loved marketing. Marketing was a very mental game as well. I enjoyed it. Solving problems, how to get consumers to buy products. I love all that. Solve the puzzle. And it was a classic case. I didn't know what I didn't know, and then this work came along and I began to engage with it as much from here as from here. So it's not like there's none of this, but it's both.
Right.
It's heart and head. And that, I think, spoke to me in a very, very different way.
Yeah. And especially when you speak about, giving attention to thing here, it takes a lot of time especially given the journey which, you are able to really synthesize it and be able to translate into some kind of action. It's easy said. I think at the hindsight you can say that you are making it look so very easy, but I'm sure something would have really gone inside in terms of either stirring you up or thinking. Was there any of those moments which really brought it all up for you to take this journey?
I always, when I talk about it's funny now, the age I am now, obviously people come to me and ask how I made the change. It seems like a blink of an eye since I was the person asking other people. It really does. It's very weird. But I think what happened was I was going through so many changes at the same time. So I think it's pretty classic, I see now, for people in their early 30s to get into kind of self-awareness, questioning things maybe they hadn't questioned before. The parents are getting older, moved out of home, got my job. So there was actually lots of different change going on. So it really was a kind of fermenting of time for me, lots of ferment going on. And at one level I was aware of it, but at another level I was deeply unaware of all the changes that were happening inside me and around me. So it was a storm, if you want to take the voyage. It was a storm. Okay, yes.
Right. So, and anything which kind of, during that time, kind of something which you latched on to, something which just put it all together for you?
I think when I think back, I think one of the key pieces for me, there was a lot of things that came together. So Unilever started buying and selling companies, much more. So we started talking about vision and values. So that was one thing that was going on.
Right.
And then there was one person who was very instrumental, who I'm still in touch with today. And he was on a similar journey to me, but maybe 3, 4, 5 years ahead of me. He'd been in Unilever, he'd left, he'd started his own company, very successful. And he introduced me to this whole world of personal development training. So not necessarily linked into a corporation, personal work. And that was really something that gave me opened up a whole new world for me. I didn't even know that world existed. I mean, I was really, school, university, Unilever. I didn't really know there was this other world out there, public trainings, and that was a game changer. That was a game changer for me. It gave me a whole different insight, really, into what was possible.
Yeah. And what really helped you in terms of translating this whole insight to be able to getting into and making it it's a big decision, leaving the comfort of being in Unilever.
Yeah.
Things are very structured.
Yeah.
There's a career progression, there is something to learn from. Things are very structured. And while, yes, love is the kind of emotion which makes you just jump out, but very interested to know how did you manage to, put the other plugs together?
I mean, that move into action, it did take me a while. I mean, I would say, so it was probably, if I say 97, 98, 99 was at the early stages, it was still 3 years. It was February 2002 that I really finally went to Jakarta to start this new world with this new company. And there was a lot of soul searching in that time. My parents saying, "What are you doing? What about your pension at Unilever?" I'm in my early 30s and they're already talking about my pension at Unilever. because that's what they knew. My parents, that was their, why would you leave Unilever? I mean, it was
Right.
like that, they, from their era, that was kind of crazy. That said, they were very supportive. It wasn't like, you shouldn't do that, but they did ask me to really make sure it was right for me. Now, they were always supportive of me, but they clearly had their concerns. And I'm very close, two of my three parents, there's a story in there, have passed away now, but my biological father's still alive. And they've always been very big, important factors in my life. And so I took their input very seriously. And so I worked through that with my mentor, as I said, the guy who I mentioned earlier. So it was a process of unfolding, really. It's like you don't get engaged on your first date, if you want to keep going with the love analogy. It's like, so there was a process of discovery.
And especially this part which you just mentioned, Marcus, is true for many individuals, especially at that phase of their life. And you just shared that while it was different from a thinking how generally you have parents are protective about your journey, they will give you advice, share it with you. But it's not so easy to still be able to, say, I hear you, but I still want to do something different. I mean, I just hear that so many times, especially in this journey when you are in your midlife period.
Yeah.
At some point or this hits you. I think intellectually we do understand it, but very difficult to take a decision. How did you manage to do that?
Well, as I say, I don't want to overplay it because they were very supportive. And at the end of the day, if I'd said, I'm doing it, they were going to back me. So it wasn't that I had to fight against their advice. They never said, don't do it. They never ever said that. But they did ask me, they asked me great questions. I guess in retrospect, they were coaching me maybe in some way, shape or form, but they were asking me great questions. And one of the things they said, and this is something that I still say to people in now the roles are reversed kind of thing, which is go and speak to people who are doing the job that you think you want to do.
That's a great advice.
And find out what they do, because what do they do Monday at 9 o'clock? Which is a great question, because as you'll know, and I know, yes, I work in coaching and training, but that's only a percentage of the time in the job, so to speak.
Right.
And that really helped actually, and it helped me narrow down the field from a big field into some smaller niches that I wanted to focus on. That really helped.
One of the emotions, at least I have felt, when you ask for something and you feel it's a big stuff, and suddenly you are given that, and then you said, oh, I got it and I want to run with it. There's something about it, you have this weight in terms of how I'm going to take it forward.
Yeah.
You had that kind of emotion at that point of time?
Yeah, it was quite a big move, because it was a move from Unilever into a small company called the Works Partnership. It was a move from marketing into training and coaching. It was a move from England to Indonesia. So it was lots of move. Yeah, exactly. So there was a lot going on. And I still remember I turned up at, if I'm really honest, when I got on the plane to Indonesia, I'm not quite sure I could have put it with a pin in the map. I'm not quite sure I could have done that. But it was a leap of faith at the end, and I turned up literally with 2 suitcases. And February 2002, I will always remember, because Jakarta was flooded, literally flooded.
Okay.
So I came out of the airport looking for my pickup, couldn't even see the road, let alone the pickup.
And this was the first time you were traveling?
Yeah, literally. I was like this. I can't see the road. I thought I might go back. What am I doing? But, I didn't burn any bridges, but bridges had clearly been crossed when you make those kind of changes. And that actually helped me. I've watched other people make that transition within Asia, and they've struggled. And I think one of the reasons that they've struggled is it's easy to go back. If you're let's say you're in Singapore and you make the same change, but it's still within Singapore, you can just kind of go next door and go back to your old job. I couldn't do that. That was gone literally halfway around the world. Suddenly my life's in 2 suitcases. So that actually helped me. Although it was a bit scary, it actually helped.
Got it. You said that when you met TWP, you found your home. What was so special about them that you really were able to take that leap from Unilever?
Yeah, they were very different, and they were the same. It's really, I know it's a paradox, but they were working in training and development and coaching, but their approach was, although they didn't use the word ontological back then, it was very ontological. And in those days, late 90s, and when I met them, 2000, that was very unusual. It was very unusual in terms of how training was done. Training in those days wasn't even PowerPoint slides back then, of course. It was like an overhead projector. I'm old enough to remember that. And you wheeled it around and,
the slides.
Slides, exactly. And they didn't have any of that. They literally had people that went to the front of the room and started engaging with people, conversation like we're having right now,
Correct.
and working through with people physically, mentally, emotionally, how they see the world. And that was just totally different. And as soon as I saw that happening, that got me interested. And then the other big piece was this business personal. They were, even though I experienced them working in Unilever where I first met them, they had this other arm which was personal work, and they weren't afraid to bring the personal work into corporate or the corporate work into personal. And that really spoke to me because of my background. I loved the personal work, but I'm very much a product of corporate life. So, and I really enjoyed bringing them together. And that's something that I think is the flavor of certainly my flavor in leadership, and the company's flavor is that mixing of both.
So if I'm getting it right, I'm assuming at that point in time you didn't have the label of something, this is ontology approach, but something resonated with you, just the way your thought process was. And your university education was in psychology and theology?
Philosophy and theology.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think that had any
Yes.
impact in terms of, okay.
It did, and for a long time I didn't see it actually, but I do increasingly now. I definitely can make a lot more links. But it was interesting, and maybe it was good at the time I couldn't make the links because early on, because I literally didn't have anything to kind of cling on to. So it was just I really was diving into a new swimming pool, and I didn't really even have any water wings. It was that. Whereas if I could have made it. If I'd done a psychology degree, for example, the danger would be, I think I already know this.
Correct.
But I didn't have that luxury. And that was actually, again, although it made it more scary to dive into the pool with no water wings, actually that's a great way to learn to swim.
Right. So now I'm curious, if you did your graduation in psychology and theology, why did you pick the marketing and Unilever? Was that just the way you can understand people and do better marketing? Or
no, I wish I had a smart answer for that. Marketing, it's very weird because my biological dad, who I didn't grow up with, I was always in touch with him, but I didn't grow up with him. He'd had the same path. He'd gone through Oxford University and then marketing in Unilever. So it was kind of there in my background, but I mean, we never really spoke that much about it. But marketing always seemed like a fun thing to do, and it seemed like it was an area where, with a non-business degree, Unilever at that time was very well known for taking its graduates, university graduates, and putting them in a great training program where you went around the factory, marketing, production planning, sales, you went around all the functions. So it was a great business education. So for someone like me, that was great. And back in those days, I don't know now, but back in those days, that's what Unilever wanted. They didn't really want business people. They wanted people who didn't really know that, so that they could educate them in the Unilever way. Now, I believe that may well have changed now, but back then it was a great marriage. It was perfect for me and perfect for them.
All right. So it seems like definitely Unilever as an organization had a great ecosystem to be able to take in young people, be able to mold them for the right thing.
Very much.
But your reference in terms of your father's journey, biological father's journey, do you think that unknowingly you were just following it?
I think we, he and I have had many conversations in those early days of personal development, because obviously as I was doing my own personal work, a lot of stuff, as it always does, comes up about your parents. And he left when I was about young, like 3-4 years old. And so there were certain things that unconsciously had kind of happened around me as a young boy. And so a lot of those things came up, and a lot of things obviously came up for him as the man who'd moved away, so to speak. And so there was a lot of things that had been unspoken in our relationship all those years later. Let's say 30 years in between. We'd always been in touch. My mum always kept us in touch, and that was great. But there were certain things we talked about, like sport, and there were certain things we didn't talk about, like our emotions. So, and that changed when I went through my own personal journey, and I think that's been a huge part of my voyage, if you like, personally. As a trainer, I often say to people, okay, I'm speaking to you right now, and I know I've got a role as trainer. I know I've got a badge right now. You're employing me as a trainer, but I've got to be honest with you. Really, I'm talking to just human being to human being, based on my own experience of what I went through. And I just offer them that, not because they should follow it, not because I'm telling them what to do, but I just want to see, so they know that they're talking to a human being, not someone who's got some kind of script that they've memorized.
That's always very powerful. End of the day, you never know how individuals process these, incidents, reference, and everybody has their own way of looking at things and taking it. So you mentioned about ontology. For our viewers, what exactly is ontology, Marcus? I know, whatever I little understand it is, you are one of the best spokesperson I have seen for the ontology, as a charter or understanding. Can you just share?
Well, thank you. I just have there's a very simple way of thinking about it, which is ontology just really means the study of being. And so if you think about what I just said, it's very much about the human being. So what does it mean to be a human being? How do we navigate our way through this world, physically, mentally, emotionally? How do we make sense of it? How do we build relationships? How do we have conversations that are effective? All of those kinds of things. So it's very much focused on you as a human being, not focused on here's some tips, here's what you should do, here's the strategy. That's all important, but that's not where the game begins. It all starts with who. Sorry, I couldn't resist that.
No, please so go ahead.
It does. It starts with looking in here, because that's where it all starts. I always say to people at the beginning of a journey in training or coaching, there's a kind of invisible shroud. It's like for the Harry Potter fans, it's like the Dementors kind of sitting over Hogwarts. And that shroud is, who do I believe I can become? Because that, unless you really get clean on that and you can see that, it's just going to be like a shroud that's going to limit everything else. You can do as many courses as you want, but you're not going to develop and grow past that, because there'll always be some kind of barrier that you self-imposed that stops you going any further. And that's really my sense of the ontology, which is we're not trying to change people, and I don't think you can anyway, but what we're trying to do is have them see how they see, notice what they notice where they're drawing the line, notice what they're deciding about themselves, about people, about the world, relationships, and have them notice that, because everyone does that. We all do that. We all draw the line somewhere. The question is, what's the consequences? Is it productive? So it's not for me to say where you should draw it, but you are drawing it. I draw it, you draw it, we all draw it in different parts of our lives. And there's always consequences. And a lot of people, it becomes invisible, and they begin to think, well, it's not my line, that's just the line. That's it. The line exists in the world, but it doesn't. The line exists in how I'm seeing the world. So that's a rather long-winded answer to your question.
And I'm really curious now, because this is the thinking behind, and you're taking it to the corporate world, you're taking it to the leadership team, you're taking it to the organizations you're doing, just living in the world. And in that world, KPIs, targets, all of these is what we really talk about, especially when you're working with a leadership change perspective. How are you able to bring this thing in those sessions?
That was really why TWP employed me at the beginning, because there was a guy called Mark Hempstead who was the founder of the Southeast Asia part of the Works partnership, and he was also ex-Unilever, and he was an auditor. I mean, you don't get much more corporate and business than an internal auditor, finance director as well. And I think he saw a kind of kindred spirit in me, and so me and him for many years, that was really what we worked on, which was we both had a love of the public work, non-corporate, but what we also had a passion for was creating results in business. And so I think in terms of making that link, the easiest way I think to make that link for people is to give them something specific. It's like a specific way in. So we can talk generally, we can talk philosophically. But it's essentially, and the one I tend to use nowadays is we talk about trust, because everyone's heard about trust, people want to talk about trust and psychological safety, et cetera, and say, well, look, in a team, let's say we're talking with a team, you look around, do you really believe that the person across from you has got your back? Have you got their back? Do you trust that they, for example, are really committed to this team, because as you'll know, so many teams actually have all these matrix management. So you've got an HR person, as an example, they report to the team leader, but they also report to the HR director who's not in the team, and they've got a functional line and they've got a P&L
It's a very
line.
common scenario. Yeah.
I often find that's an easy way in for people, because everyone knows that the levels of trust in a team, that's going to impact the team's output. It just is. And so it's finding something specific. So it is intangible, it's the levels of trust that we have, but showing how the intangible is really what generates the tangible. And so that's how I tend to do it. I like to have something specific that I can offer them to think about. For what it's worth, that's how I determine a great team. For me, the difference between a team and a great team is the level of relationship. Everyone knows that a team is a group of people committed to a common vision. But what people often miss is the great teams are also committed to each other, just like they're committed to the vision. And if you get that humming, everything changes. And so that's the kind of way that I do.
It works, yeah. And you have been doing it for quite many years now. Is there enough validations that people take it back after the training session is over? And
well, this is a bit like asking your hairdresser if you need a haircut.
The reason I'm asking this is because it is such a need. Absolutely what you just painted the scenario, this is the reality of the organizations. If you ask the leadership, yes, trust, empathy, these are such a need, it's a common thing. But here is a right way to do it, but then most of the training programs are all everything else.
Well, yeah, so I one of my lines that I often say to HR people, get myself into trouble, is that 80% of your budget is wasted, really, because you're just telling people what they should do. And honestly, we could do it right now. We could put a flip chart here. We go, okay, what are the things that leaders should do? And we're probably going to come up with a very similar list. They've got to create alignment. They've got to take risk. People know that. Right. You can get it from ChatGPT. What do leaders do? You can get all that. You see, that's not where the secret sauce is. The secret sauce is having people really look at their own personal voyage or their own personal journey. How are they seeing things? If it was as simple as knowing what, you just need to know what to do, it'd be a very different world out there.
Marcus, you are a coach, you're a trainer, you're running 2 different institutes, and you're also an author. You've authored 2 books. Tell us more about the journey. I think Fit to Lead is the first one, is where you started.
Yeah.
And that's a lot about body, part of the stuff.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. I'm very passionate about that area. And what happened with that book was, it was a combination of me finding the somatic work in our Newfield coach training school, which really, that was really from 2010. That took a while. My first 10 years, I didn't really do much work around the body. But then when we partnered with Newfield and we became the coach partnership as well, this whole world of somatic work, soma from the body, came in, as that was really fascinating for me. But the thing that also happened for me was that my wife, Sari, at the time was a personal trainer. Mm-hmm. And so we would literally have conversations. She would come home at the end of the day, I'd come home at the end of the day, and I would say, wow, okay, my corporate people, they're all super smart, okay, but their physical body is a mess. And she would come back and go, my guys, their physical body is brilliant, but they have no idea what they're doing. Okay, they're just all over the place.
Okay.
And that's really what happened. And so Fit to Lead is co-authored by myself and Sari in terms of bringing those 2 areas together. And I'm still very passionate about that area, I have to say. I think that's still to this day undervalued. In terms of, you don't have to be, I always say, you don't have to be Usain Bolt. It's not about being a professional athlete. I just make it very simple. The more that this bit is effective and working, the more that everything else just gets easier. But the more you're fighting your health, for example, the harder it becomes. It's as simple as that. You don't have to be an athlete, but it's just making sure you're taking care of everything.
Respecting your body.
Your body, as well as your emotional side and your mental side. They're all interacting together. Nowadays, that's a lot more commonly accepted.
Yes, more awareness.
But Fit to Lead was 8 years ago, and even 8 years ago, it was still relatively new.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's really got more and more
Yeah,
So
that's
I'm
good
very,
news.
and if you, by the way, just as a little tip, if you ever want to, put your marriage under pressure, write a book with your wife. That's a little tip for you.
That's exactly what my next question was going to be. Sari is also a coach. She's
She is
also
now,
a part
yes.
of a lot of professional and a lot of stuff you do together personal. How do you manage this balance? Because that's another aspect of this whole midlife where all of these things get tested. There are milestones. You're done with your studies, you find a job, you get married.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's another aspect of you get kids. And then, but after that, you have to live those things. Now you have everything and you take the journey forward. And you guys are doing great, running everything, so many stuff. How do you manage that? What's the secret sauce?
There's no secret sauce for that, and we don't. And we have our disagreements and all sorts just as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
But what I will say is this, and I really do believe this. Having gone through the work, the ontological work, the coach training school, with the coach partnership, with the works partnership, it gives you tools to navigate.
Sure.
And I think that really helps. And the two of us, we really noticed it during COVID. So we're in Singapore, we live in a small apartment, we're shut down, can't go out. And, it puts everything under a magnifying glass. And I think certainly for me, and I know Sari would say the same because we've had this discussion, without these kind of tools of being and starting with myself, seeing how I see, I'm not sure we would have got through that. So I'm a big believer in, as a trainer, someone who works in the industry, you've got to bring the work to to your life. It's not just, okay, I'm just going to teach it Monday to Friday and then do something else at the weekend. It doesn't work like that. It's really got to be how you live your life. And then when you go into the front of the room in the training room, you're really just talking about how you're living your life, really, in many ways.
Eating your own dog food.
You've got to. I mean, otherwise, I've been in lots of training rooms over many years now, and for me, I think I've got quite a good antennae. The people who are just teachers and they're just telling you what to do, essentially, but I just don't get the experience that they're really living it. But other trainers, fantastic, who are clearly in it, living it, practicing it. It just lands differently on me.
Yeah.
I've got quite a good antennae after 25 years.
Oh, that's a very right word you use, antenna, and there's no way to describe it. It's just that over the period, if you are into certain kind of stuff, you just get a sense of people around. Yeah. Great. So Marcus, anything on your journey which kind of just catapult in terms of taking to the next level, some help which came from any of the areas which you'd like to share, which you were able to, I think help is always around, but sometimes what happens is we don't know how to leverage it many times. And at the hindsight, you're able to either reflect on and say, oh, I wish I would have done that, or thanks for that, what was available. Anything which you can reflect on your life journey so far?
I think for me, the biggest thing I think that's made an impact for me is, for whatever reason, I've always been open to receiving support and different points of view. So if I think back through my journey, the person I mentioned earlier, early on in my career, he was 3 or 4 years ahead of me. Yeah. And then with TWP, Mark Hempstead, who was the guy who set up the company with Teeny, he was very, very different to me. And so we were a good partnership, but like any good partnership with opposites, sometimes we really wanted to strangle each other, but at other times he said things I didn't want to hear, but actually I needed to hear. Right. And that was very powerful. And then sadly, with Mark having passed away, Teeny has really stepped up into being a great partner with me. She's very different to Mark, but she's also very different to me. And then I would put my parents in, my 3 parents in that journey as well, my sister, my brother. So I've had people around me at every turn, and I think that really helps. I think so many people I meet, consciously or not, they've just decided they have to do it on their own. And I think that it's not like you can't. There's lots of great solo players out there, but it becomes very one track. And I just think I've benefited so much from having great people around me. That I say that's just it doesn't mean I agree with them all the time, or I go, oh yeah, I'll do that and I'll do that. It's not that, but the sounding boards, the ability to talk, listen, that makes a huge difference.
I think that's really profound, and I can totally connect with that. Thanking people for that, and that's where I think the world is changing. while ChatGPT will always be available for you to have the interaction, but I can't thank enough people who have been at various phases of my life. And to your point, it's not that we're just living with them, but they're just there.
Yeah.
And you can still meet them,
Sure.
and you can just pick it up from there and say, that was a great time, but you can look back and thank them. So totally get that part.
It's really strange as well. I think this first person I was called, it was a guy called Darren, and I must have met him first time 1997, and so that's what 28 years ago now.
That's in London.
Yeah, he's still in London.
Uh-huh.
I'm obviously in Asia, but when I go back, I don't reach out to him every time now, but when I do, we meet, and it's like I saw him last week. It's really crazy, and he's still on his journey, and he's got his company, which is in a similar area. I've got my company now, and it's very powerful. And over the years, it's changed. I mean, I think it's become more mutual, I think.
Yeah.
But I benefit so much from those I just enjoy those kind of conversations, and I find them very valuable.
And do you think this falls into the category of psychological safety? Just the thing about having this kind of people around unknowingly, that is what is getting created? Is that?
Yeah, very much. I mean, depending on your definition of it, but in terms of that freedom and the feeling safe to just say whatever I need to say, and also for them to do the same with me. I mean, I think yes, I think I think that's what we have. We don't call it that, but we do have it. Right. Yeah.
Especially if I come from the lot of tech world side of the I've spent more time there. Yes, you have colleagues, you have people, but if you really have to ask people that how many people you can count where you have this kind of relationship, the numbers are very few. So and consciously we are not really investing effort to build those kind of relationship. And again, I keep coming back to, you don't need to hang around with them like 24 hours, but something to keep in mind
for sure.
To create that stuff.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Marcus, you went on to write the other book, Start With Who. Now, you know what? Whatever, just little English, how's that? I mean, to me, it is a little unconventional. Start with who?
Yes. That's why I chose it.
So you chose that.
Yeah.
Can you just break that for us?
Well, it was, obviously there's a very successful book, much more successful than mine, called Start With Why. And so that was in my mind. I think, generally, it's quite well received wisdom that you start with the why. It is, which is why am I doing what I'm doing? I mean, that makes sense. And of course, that is a great place to start as well. However, I do genuinely think that the ontological approach, actually there is a layer underneath that, which is, it's you. It's why is there a why? Where's the why coming from? The why is coming from the who, which is, who have you decided you can become? Who are you being right now? You see, there's a person who has the why. The why doesn't just exist. The why exists in me or the team. So it wasn't just a play on that. It was, I genuinely believe that. And that's really the heart of the ontological work, which it does start with you as an individual, or if it's working with a team, the team essentially becomes the individual. So how the team sees things and experiences things. So that's where the title came from.
And when you are taking this concept forward in your leadership transformation stuff, how does the reception of this to the people from effort?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it's still quite a wake-up call for people, because I think even today, people often want to start with the what, so what do I want, SMART goals, etc., which is great. All of these things have their part to play. Some people think, okay, I need to know the why and the purpose and all of that, and that's great too. But the who still gets a little left out. People, it is a little bit invisible. As I say, you have the worst seat in the house to see yourself. So you just assume so many things. And turning the spotlight in on you, or having someone work with you who can do that, you see, once you do that, everything else changes. It just has you see everything differently when you're willing to look at the glasses you look through. It literally is like, you'll always have glasses. It's not like you can take your glasses off. And it's not like your glasses are bad. That's a fundamental principle of our work. But you can expand your glasses if you like. You can make those filters bigger, etc.
That's in your hand.
That's totally in your hands. And then when you do that, you just see more things around you, and things that were invisible now become visible. And that's a game changer. And that's really the drive of the book, and that's what I'm very passionate about, because I do believe that when people start on that journey, they really can transform their life, genuinely, not as a theoretical principle, but in reality. And there's, to your point earlier, which I'm not sure I really handled, we got so much evidence from people we work with that they really have gone on and transformed their life, their relationship with their parents, with their kids, with their husband, their wife, their careers, so many case studies and testimonials. So it's not a science. Can't say it works every time or anything like that. There's no straight line correlation. But over 25 years, there is a lot of examples for that.
Marcus, you have spent quite a good amount of time in Asia. This part of the world, when you talk about who journey, what I really understand is there's a kind of different way of looking at it, in terms of the path is all about everybody's working, and then you suddenly say, you know what, I want to be a little spiritual about it. That's a label, right. I have observed, right? Yeah. And that's the way people take the journey. So yes, you are in the corporate job, you're doing everything else, and then you take a break, you go for your silence retreat, you go for and then we have so much of ecosystem here to be able to go and find yourself. I mean, if I look at it, pretty much the same thing, but the idea here is that, are you really able to take the journey and able to bring it out in whatever you're doing in your life?
Yeah.
But the way I see it, people taking the journey is it's like almost like a retreat, a break.
Yes.
And then you just, does that make sense? Do you see that?
I definitely see that. And it's not, by the way, that's not true in every country in Asia, I have to say.
Yeah, I think
it's true, more true in some countries than others. But the spiritual journey, if you like, is very different in different countries. Right. And there's this path. One of the interesting distinctions I've noticed is, and you touched on it, which is there are some people who, not just in Asia, by the way, and everywhere, some people have this belief that I can go and find myself in some way. Right. My come from is that actually we are creating ourselves. There's nothing to actually go and discover. And I use, and I talk about this in the Start With Who book, which is, if you think about the word authenticity, the beginning of that word is very revealing in my world, because it's author, A-U-T-H. So you can author who you want to be in the world. You have the authority to do that. Only you have that authority. So for me, that's not an accident that these words are kind of similar. And so it's more of a creative process than a discovery, than a kind of let's go and find it process. And that for me works when I'm working with people. I notice that often helps them reshape how they're approaching this development.
That's really great. So that's what you mean by creating yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
So my point, and I'm not saying this is fact, by the way, or anything like that, or scientifically proven. It's just, again, for me, much as I love the philosophy and I love the scientific, the neuroscience, I love all that. But ultimately for me, I think the thing that has always powered my journey, if you like, is it productive? Because at the end of the day, we can sit around in a restaurant and have a discussion about the philosophy of these kind of things. And that's great, and I love that, and I do genuinely love that. But ultimately, if I'm working with someone and they want to develop, they want to get new results, whatever it is, my frame for them is, this is all great, but is it working for you? You may think you're doing the right thing, but if it's not working for you, is it the right thing for you? Is it productive for you? And that often is, again, can be a shift their discussion or their exploration.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer trying to find out what's right or what's true. Not that that's a bad journey, it's just not the journey really I'm on with them. I can support them. Is it working? Is it productive? And that's something that really gets my juices flowing. For me, I like to live a productive life, and I like to be surrounded by people, clients and family and friends, community, who are on that similar journey. We want to live a productive life. And sometimes it's a bit inconvenient. What you want to do and what you think is right isn't working. That can happen. And then it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it just needs that shift of environment, somebody holding a space even to bring this perspective.
Yes.
And it just happens like people's. So from that journey perspective, you work with so many people so till now. Has any client input has given you a very different perspective of yourself? Anything was shifted in you?
Yeah, I think so many things. I mean, I think clients it's a different relationship. I mean, so I think one of the things that struck me with one of my clients in particular, and I can still see them. He was a great guy. I coached him for a little while, and up in, it was an interesting one actually, because he was in China, but it wasn't Chinese, but he was based in China. French guy based in China, and he basically told me off. He said, he stopped one of the coaching conversations we were having, and he said, look, this is okay, but my sense is you're just not being honest with me. You're holding back, essentially. And I'm not sure whether I can't remember at the time whether I thought consciously, am I holding back or not? I wasn't sure, but just his willingness to tell me that, that really did take our coaching to a different level. And I think when I processed that afterwards, supported by my kind of team, like Teeny, for example, I could see that there was lots of places where I was doing that, and that willingness to up my game in terms of really being forthright, being direct, which is still a relatively weak muscle for me. It's not my favorite muscle, but that moment did help me kind of start to, okay, this is something that if I really want to be effective, if I really want to support people to be productive, I've got to build that muscle. I was very good at creating a space for people, feeling safe, they could step into it. But once they were in that space, was I willing to really challenge them and really go full bore with them? And so he called that out in me, and I think I always look back on that as a key moment for me.
Was this early in your journey of coaching, or?
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, I mean, I'm going, how long? Everything in my mind is pre and post COVID. It was pre-COVID. Let's say that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
And that's really powerful, because anything which you take the path after a point of time, you set in a certain way.
Yes.
And I think this kind of references or somebody bringing that perspective really helps. And at least coaching stuff, every conversation is just, you are learning so much about yourself, and many a time it could be
Absolutely.
as transformative as this.
That's the key thing about the ontological approach, is you're not, as the ontological coach or trainer, it's not that the participants are here and you're kind of living outside of their, we're all in it together. We're all in the world together. And so yes, I have a role called coach or trainer, and you have a role as participant, yes. But we are all in it together. This kind of human soup, and so I'm genuinely learning and discovering as that's part of it. If I come in and go, right, I'm sorted because I've got my ICF certification, so I know what I'm doing. Now I'm going to help you catch up. I mean, that's just hopeless. I mean, that really is hopeless.
Yeah.
It's just not the way the ontological approach is set up. Now, I should say one other thing about this conversation, though, because as I'm talking, I was thinking about it. It wasn't that I had to go from 50% to 100%. What my key takeout was to be more tuned into the person here and what would serve them. Because he was a very successful entrepreneur, French guy living in China. He had a high tolerance for me just to lay it out there.
Right.
That's not going to work for everyone.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that, okay, I need to do that with everyone. That would have been a horrible mistake. But it was that I needed to pay more attention to the person in front of me about where I can turn that volume up. And that was the key piece for me. It's not like there's one correct level for everyone.
Yeah.
If you just go in and be direct with everyone, you're not going to have many clients.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the other day is human being and complex.
It's all in relationship. Yeah. But it was a big moment. That.
Yeah. So Marcus, you mentioned that your North Star question, which is, adding to you, is what am I doing to help people around me grow? I know all of these things, if I put it together, you have both in terms of created ecosystems, thinking around that. Whatever you have created right now, where do you think it is heading towards? Where do you think is going for the next phase? Especially given, one is in terms of setting the context of this kind of thinking, which itself takes time to even create our own community of people who can align with it. Second is in terms of the whole infrastructure around that. And the third is just the way world is moving. You can have all of these things, and obviously we are talking in the time where we have AI.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's a multi-layered question. I mean, I think, if I start with just my own personal journey, I'm not 35 anymore. I'm 58 now. And so there's something in my own personal journey, if this company is going to, move forward without me at some point, it's time to start putting some things in place. It's time to start looking through a different lens rather than just the lens I've had for the previous 20 years.
Right.
So I think there's an intensely personal aspect to that. And that's something I'm working with at the moment. So that's important. I think in terms of...
So what does it mean? That is like you're looking for individuals who can carry the torch?
Yeah, essentially. I always say that the work is the work, and the work is much bigger than any of us. And we actually, if you think about it, we actually hold the work in our hands for a very short period of time, really.
Yeah.
It's a blink of an eye. And it's caring for the work, building on it. Absolutely, don't just hold it like it's a sacred text and nothing changes. It's not that. You do build on it, and I like to think I've had an impact on it, and we've developed and grown it in some ways. But there is now a point where you're going to think, okay, so what's next? What's the next place? How's it going to move? Because the business itself, the business I joined in 2002, is still the business I'm in today, but it looks very different. And so, if I go forward another 25 years, obviously it won't be me running it anymore, but it will look very different. So it's it's almost like a relay race I'm going to hand the baton on. So that's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
It's that kind of feel.
Okay, so you're preparing for the transfer of the baton slowly, but being realistic about it.
See where we go.
Okay. So Marcus, before this has been an interesting conversation, and from our users' perspective, what we really like to focus on is in terms of what could be for them to take out of this whole journey, this kind of conversations, where they can really take few nuggets and be able to see, okay, can I take the leap in my life and be able to take it forward? And as you have been navigating this conversation for us today, and we get the opportunity for you to write something in our captain's log, what will that be, if I have to ask?
Wow. Okay. It's a difficult question, that. It might sound a bit of a cliche, but I do believe that a lot of it comes down to trusting yourself, which is finding your own path. You see, that's what really worked for me. I had lots of input, as I've said many times in this conversation, but ultimately the thing that really shifted for me was when I found something. And maybe I had to be looking for it in the first place, but if I wanted to write something in that log, it would be, find something, discover, be in the search for something that mentally, emotionally, physically has you go, that's who I want to be. That gives me an outlet for me to express who I want to be in the world, not who I think I should be, not my parents telling me to be, not my, all of those things, but who do I want to be? And then it could go in many places. Maybe you'll end up as it could go anywhere from there. You may not end up in coaching and training, for example. You could end up in anything. But I think a lot of people give up on that dream, and I think that's sad. I think they give up on, I've just got to get a job and I've just got to pay the bills, and at some level, yes, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I am saying there's more than that. And you might have to get a job to pay some bills, for example, but that doesn't stop you discovering and looking for that piece where it all comes together. Because that's what I was doing. I was doing a marketing career, I had to pay my bills just like everyone else, but at the same time I was looking for and searching for something that was more than that. And that's what I eventually found.
That's great. So basically what you're saying is hold on to the thought, be with it, and things will happen. Like just
be looking for it. I do think you need some kind of conscious intention to be searching for something,
right.
Searching for that moment where physically, mentally, and emotionally it does get congruent. It is authentic. It is authentic. I think if you don't look for it, you won't find it. But at least if you're willing to be engaging in that, even if you know what you're doing right now isn't perfect. Like for me, marketing was never the perfect job, but I did it. I enjoyed it. I made money doing it, so I paid my bills. But it didn't stop me. See, a lot of people, I think what they do is they use that as the excuse not to go and look. I have to do this. And then they justify not looking for anything else. And I think that's just a shame, because I think we've all got that within us. I think we've all got that. That's part of being human, is that physical, mental and emotional congruence. And when it happens, there's no science to that, but when it happens, the world looks different.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marcus. That's really profound and totally aligned with that. So
Great.
thank you for the journey today.
Not at all. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this video. I totally understand it's not easy to watch a long podcast like this, but I'm pretty sure if you have managed to go through it, you would have had something more deeper to connect with our navigator's story. It takes a lot to build videos like this. We have put in a lot of effort to create this content, to be able to find those navigators and bring their stories to life. As we are just scanning our environment, we're talking to a lot of people. There's a lot of more interesting stuff which is there. I can promise you that we will be lining up a very, very interesting podcast similar to this today. If you like it, share it out, and if you have any specific feedback, just let us know. We will take a look at it and try to do our best to improve it for the next one. Yeah, once again, thank you very much, and I will see you again in our upcoming podcast.